Educafe is digital this year. GulfMadhyamam presents Educafe Season 6.
Hi, I'm Janani Satchidanandam, Senior Clinical Dietitian at Aster Hospital, Alkisais. Today I'll be taking you through what is healthy eating, what is portion size versus serving size, exercise, and frequently asked questions. So now what is healthy eating? Healthy eating is all about balance. So we need to balance the food what we intake. These days the food is not seen as food, it is more seen as nutrients. But when it comes to nutrients, when we eat good balanced food, that is when you get all the nutrients. So apart from that, you need to have some variety in your day-to-day routine. Variety, when I say, it means about the vegetables or the fruits which we intake. It is not about ending up eating only the starchy vegetables. We need to include the non-starchy vegetables also. So apart from that, again, we need to look into the physical activity part. So physical activity, when it comes to being active, either you can target for 10,000 steps throughout the day, or it can be something like being active 5 days a week, at least 3 times in a week, depending upon your work and schedule. So coming to the basics of nutrition, again, you need to keep everything in mind, whether it is going to be the carbohydrate, the macronutrients, or the proteins which you're going to intake, and the fat. So carbohydrates, again, we need to choose more of complex carbohydrate rather than simple carbohydrate, and especially more of brown rice and chapatis or whole wheat breads. So coming to the proteins, again, we need to choose lean proteins, which more like chicken without skin, or again fish, and try to avoid red meat as much as possible. Maybe you can take it very less frequently, that is once in a month or once in a week, depending upon your conditions. So again, including a lot of leafy vegetables and fibrous vegetables is going to help you keep healthy for your gut as well as for your day-to-day activities. Hydration is also equally important. So in that way, again, hydrate well so that your immunity is also boosted likewise, and minimum of 1.5 liters water intake for the females and 2 liters or 2.5 liters for the males, depending upon the surroundings and depending upon your body surface area. So apart from all these things, we need to also look into the fat which we are consuming. So coming to fat, there are 3 types: trans fats, saturated fat, and unsaturated fat. So trans fat is something which comes from the processed food, so it is always good to avoid them. Saturated fat is again coming from the animal sources, so it is better to limit them. And unsaturated fat mainly comes from the plant-based oils and fats, which can be used accordingly in our day-to-day basis. Now coming to the questions, the most frequently asked questions, either during the pandemic or apart from the regular routine, it can be something, whether I can use butter or whether I can use margarine. So butter again is a unsaturated fat, so it is always good to use in moderation. And margarine is a saturated fat which comes from the plant-based. So again, everything using in moderation is always good when it comes to fat. So the second question, what most frequently is asked is, can I go gluten free, or to lose weight, or it can be whether gluten allergy. So unless you are not allergic to gluten, it is better to not avoid taking gluten. So apart from that, another question which is asked is whether I can take sea salt or the normal kosher salt, or whether it is a iodized salt. So there is not much of a difference in taking the salt, but it also depends on how much we are adding it into the food. So that is more predominantly observed, as well as we are ending up eating mostly the processed food, which also contains a lot of salt in it. So and the next question can be about the milk, whether we can have milk, whether it is heart healthy, or whether I'm a lactose intolerant because you don't tolerate them. So again, lactose is something which is a protein found in the milk, and if at all only you are intolerant and it is detected by a test, and it is better to avoid them. Otherwise, it is better to have them in at least 2 servings a day of milk can be still had. When I need to talk about the foods which is more healthy for the growing up children or the toddlers or the adolescents, so it is mainly, again, we need to keep the meal more balanced, and as they are growing up they will require different kinds of nutrients for different age groups. So from 1 year to like say 10 years, again, they need to concentrate on all the micronutrients which is more essential for them in their growth, including fat, which insulates their body system and protect them against the cold and other conditions. So apart from that, all the other vital nutrients are being given to them by taking a lot of variety of fruits and vegetables, which is included in their day-to-day routine. Now also we need to concentrate on more of taking seafoods, mostly like fish, which again helps in giving them good DHA, that is docosahexaenoic acid, which helps in their brain development, as this is the stage of their brain development and they will catch up things. The first 5 years is very important for them in their learning, so whatever they catch up at, that growth is always being followed. So again, we can give them good amount of nuts and seeds, especially like walnuts and almonds, so which again adds on to their nutrition there. And coming to the teenagers, again, they need to concentrate on more of taking fibrous vegetables, which they mostly lack taking. So again, we need to incorporate them in some of the other kinds so that it is being a balanced diet, as well as they get the vital nutrients, mostly like iron, calcium or zinc, which is required for them on a day-to-day routine. Now coming to the adolescents, again, they will require mostly like iron, zinc, and apart from that, the vital nutrients like magnesium and various balanced amount of carbohydrate intake, as well as the protein sources as they are growing up. So they will require their protein sources, which needs to be balanced out. So taking good amount of seafoods, or it can be anything like a lean meat, or it can be in the form of nuts and seeds or beans varieties, can be included on their day-to-day routine. So overall, again, hydration is also equally important for a growing children. So not to forget, rather than giving them fruit juices, it is always better to hydrate them with water, or it could be a tender coconut water, anything apart from the beverages like sodas. So when it comes to junk food, again, it is always better to avoid them, or we can give it in limited portions when we are unable to control the child, because it is not very often that we can limit them from going outside or getting engaged in any kind of occasions. So again, we need to choose wise in what we are giving to the children. So it is always good for them to have something which is air fried. Nowadays we are using these air fryers rather than deep frying the foods, so that also gives you the similar kind of texture, especially something like a potato fries, which every children would enjoy to eat. So in those cases, you can prepare them at home in an air fryer and still give it to them in a healthy way. Whereas when we end up giving them as an outside junk food, so now what happens, we don't know what kind of oil is being used there and how it is being prepared, also what kind of oil is going in. So this again contributes for the trans fats there, which leads to obesity in children. So it is good to have in moderation, or it is better to avoid them and look for a replacements like a healthy foods, more like fruits, or it can be something which can be homemade, so that you know what are the ingredients going in, as well as you will be knowing what is healthy and what is not. So vitamin D is something which is more prevalent. Vitamin D deficiency is more prevalent in the Emirates here. So again, one thing to overcome this problem would be to eat healthy, balanced food. If it is extremely deficient, again we need to start them on medication with a physician's advice. But apart from that, let's look into the foods which can contribute to the increasing your levels of vitamin D. So it can be something like a fish, which you can include them, especially the fish with bones you can include, or it can be the whole eggs, which you can give it to the children. So having a whole egg every day is not going to contribute to the cholesterol or in any kind. So it is always good to give one full egg on a day-to-day routine. Apart from that, include leafy vegetables, and mostly it like say you can include mushrooms if you are a vegetarian. So these are very few sources of vitamin D which can be consumed. Apart from that, the sunlight also which can contribute here.
Educafe is digital this year. GulfMadhyamam presents Educafe Season 6.